there, welcome to Adventures in Visibility. Today we're going to be exploring what makes you uniquely you and how you can use that and position that uniqueness in the marketplace. I'm Denise Wakeman, your guide and host for better visibility on the web, and today we have a fun guest that I've known for a long time, Nancy Marmolejo, and I'm going to be talking with Nancy about her transition from one brand to her current brand, which is quite fascinating, and we're going to be talking about marketing and is copycat marketing dead? Now, before I get to that, I just want to remind you that if you like advance notice of who is coming up for my next guest on Adventures in Visibility, you can go to adventuresinvisibility.com to subscribe and get advance notice. And also, we are now available as a podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. So if you prefer to take Adventures in Visibility on the go with you, you can go to adventuresinvisibilitypodcast.com. So to really capitalize on the visibility that you are creating on the web, you need to stand out from the crowd. And that is the specialty and the genius of my guest, Nancy Marmolejo. Nancy, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her first. Nancy's been in business since 2003. She's won numerous awards in business innovation and achievement, been featured in 5 books, has over 100 media credits to her name, and maintains a great reputation in her industry, and I can attest to that. All work and no play is not a part of her genius plan, so when she's not working, you can find Nancy living the genius life with her amazing daughter and very large orange cat. And Nancy, I have to say that when I read that in your bio about your large orange cat, it kind of made me teary because my large orange cat just went off on his next adventure 2 weeks ago. And so it's kind of like, oh, you know, I have a very soft spot for large orange cats. So, anyway, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Denise. I'm really excited to be here and just very grateful for the friendship that we've had for, I think, about 10 years now that we've known each other professionally, and have always been such a great admirer of you and all that you do.
And vice versa. And it's been a while since we connected, so I'm really glad, you know, that this came together. So, you know, because I really admire what you're doing. And that kind of brings me to the first question, which, you know, I was thinking about it this morning as I was prepping, and I was thinking, you know, you've made several big brand changes in the last 10 years. And I'd like to, you know, start with that because I think that that will dovetail into this topic of where you are now and unique positioning. You know, how do you position yourself? Because when I met you, you were Comadre Coaching, and then Viva Visibility, and now you're Talent and Genius. So
yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Well, what's really cool about it, and thank you for your brand, Comadre Coaching. I look at it more as a distillation of me and my branding as opposed to a change. So what's happened is obviously when you're doing something for 10 years, and for myself, I'm constantly learning, constantly examining my own growth as a professional and as a person. And when I reach a new level of truth about myself or my mission, my purpose, and I see that, gee, the way that I'm presenting myself to the world really isn't in alignment with that, I need to shift and transition. So when I first, more than a decade ago, with my Comadre Coaching brand, I was coaching wildly creative entrepreneurs and really working at, you know, using your creativity in your business, and a lot of startups, a lot of really, you know, very exciting creative entrepreneurs that I worked with. And what I discovered, it was all about how you put yourself out there, how you position yourself, how you show yourself to the world, and we were doing that through the lens of just showing up authentically and creatively. That got a lot of attention. I got a lot of media credit, and suddenly people started asking me, well, how'd you do that? And that's when I forayed into visibility, and I did Viva Visibility. So it's, visibility tips like you share, how to get out there on Facebook, how to get out there in social media, and then my message underlying that will be as authentic as you can, position yourself so that your expertise is leading the way, and that's more important than all the platforms. And then I realized, what, you're better at you and I've had this conversation before. When we look at what we do in visibility, like mine was more around positioning. You're like the master of understanding things like Google Hangout and other components. And I realized, what people were asking me for so much technical information, that wasn't really what I wanted to be known for. So there was this confusion for myself and people coming to me for help, and they thought I could help them get more followers on Twitter. And I really wanted to talk to them about, how they're presenting themselves to the world. So I went through a little bit of a brand identity crisis, swirled around in that for a while. And then the Talent and Genius brand was birthed in 2013. And it's a distillation of everything. I still hold true the creative calling and the commitment to curiosity and exploring the edge at all times, finding innovative ways to put ourselves out there, positioning from your expertise, but most importantly, authentically and honestly, and just putting yourself out there in a way that's so truthfully you. And that I see as a huge magnet. And I hear the cries of people in the marketplace. They're asking for more of this. They want to just strip down all the razzle-dazzle, hocus-pocus stuff that just doesn't fly anymore. So that's the kind of the nutshell of the evolution of this. And it's kind of cool that you've known me for this whole time, and you can kind of see like there's a certain common thread that never changes, but little things on the outside might be, transforming.
Right. It's as much about what you call and what many people call positioning. It's just changing the language, reframing that a little bit. And I can totally relate to what you're talking about because I've been going through that, transition for the last 2 years too, when I realized that what I was doing was great, but I had like this little veneer in front of me. It was too, I don't know, formal in a way. And I went on a trip to Peru and just was like, I don't know, I just saw the light or something. And that hence Adventures in Visibility was born because, I was denying this whole part of myself, which was around the adventurousness, not only in travel, but how I am adventurous in business and et cetera. So
I love that. I just want to say I have noticed that with you, and having known you as always, just I think it's important for us to reveal a part of ourselves, but to reveal it in a way that's comfortable for us. Mm-hmm. And for you going to Machu Picchu and letting us know not just the fact that you love to hike, but there's a certain kind of person who hikes Machu Picchu. So it starts to peel back the layers a bit, and understanding you more, I see that in you, and I want to just acknowledge you and honor you for it because I think that's been a beautiful gift that you've given us.
Yeah. And myself when I saw it, absolutely. So, okay, then you are an embodiment of what you're working on with your clients, and there's this, you talk about the intersection of talent and genius. So how do you put that together for people? What is that look like? How does somebody position themselves in that way to tap into those two parts?
It's super cool, and it's easy, and anybody can do it. It just takes a little bit of just a little introspection. So I truly believe that each of us has a unique calling, a unique way of presenting ourselves to the world. I can walk into a room full of people who are all experts in the same thing. They can all be Twitter experts, they could all be QuickBook experts, they could all be marketing experts. But by looking at their unique intersection of talent and genius, I can show you that no two are alike. And each one is going to attract their perfect clients. Each one has endless opportunities for wealth building, for revenue, for business growth. And when we stand in that place, there's a confidence and a knowing in ourselves that's beyond it's beyond logic. It's beyond anything. It's huge. So here's a quick exercise that people can do. The talent part is everything that you've learned in life through education, work experience, life-defining experiences. There are people out there who help folks who are dealing with cancer, and because they might have gone through it personally or through a loved one. Whatever your education is, your background, your work experience, even if it was just a random odd job, like Steve Jobs took calligraphy at Reed College, and that influenced him later on to make fonts a big deal at Apple. That's part of the talent. It's all of this external stuff that gets fed into us, and then it intersects with what I call our genius, which are our innate strengths. Whether a person's naturally analytical, has a natural sense of humor, intuitive, empathic, funny, that makes us who we are. And you take that life path of talent and you cross it with those life gifts of genius, and it's very, very unique because it's not just what you do, it's who you are when you're doing it, it's how you show up when you're doing it, and that resonates with the marketplace. It leaves what I call the emotional imprint. And the emotional imprint is what's going to get people to want to follow you, to be your fan, to buy from you, to read your blog, to watch your podcast, to hang out with you on Google, all that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk about, or you have in your process, or that you discuss, which I've read about, is the 4 essential questions. Is that how people get in touch with this exercise?
Yes.
These pieces?
So there are 4 essential questions that you can ask yourself. And the first question that you ask yourself is, what am I great at? So that's really looking at, what's that talent? Okay. Who is it meant for? So that's looking at your ideal clients. Why is it important? And that's looking at, it could be important because you personally feel called to do it, or why is it important? Because the timing is right and it's a great opportunity. And then lastly, why you? So why you and not the next person? And if you can go through those 4 essential questions, that's a really good place to start when looking at your positioning, because what you're great at, who is it meant for, why is it important, and why you? I mean, right there you've got a rock solid positioning strategy, so that way you can confidently go out in the marketplace and do what you're doing. Even if there's a million other people who quote unquote do what you do, you could be the one that stands out, more visible.
And that's how you get found by your ideal client, right? You got to stand out. There's so many people out there, and how do you distinguish from one to the other? And do you find that there's one of those questions that people get stuck on more than another?
I think people can get stuck on any one of the 4.
Mm-hmm.
I coach people through this. It sounds really easy putting it out there. It's one of those things where it's simple but not easy, because when you really start to think, what am I great at? People come to me, oh my gosh, there's like 100 million things they could name. And then I say, what are you great at? I want to distill it down. Where's the focus? And that's where a lot of the coaching comes in.
Yeah.
And then also that whole piece about why me.
That's the one I was thinking of, because I think that in my experience, many people have that question and can't answer it. And I've at times felt like I can't answer it too. Like, well, why me? Because there's like all these other people too.
You can wake up one day and feel crappy and cranky, and you ask yourself, why me? And you just like, oh, there's no reason. Nobody wants me. And then suddenly something happens where you might work with somebody and somebody reflects something back to you, gives you some feedback on the process you helped them through or something, and suddenly you feel on purpose. So that can turn on and off really easily. It has a lot to do with our own emotional state. It has a lot to do with what we're doing to maintain calm and confidence in our own lives. So the inside stuff has a lot to do with your positioning as well. If you're feeling wobbly and shaky underneath, it's going to show, no matter how slick your branding, no matter how spot on your message. You're not believing it and you're not standing true in it, it's going to show.
Agreed. And so that takes me to the next piece here, is that how do you put that into a message so that is the right message for the people that you want to attract?
Well, it's always important to follow, there's some basic guidelines for a great message. Who you are, what you do, who you work with, and the results people get. And if you can stay focused on those components, the power that's inside of it is the language that you choose. But if you just remember to communicate who you are, what you do, who you work with, and the results people get, and stay focused on that, that's going to help. Because what happens is that when I ask people, tell me about yourself, tell me about your business, why should I get excited about working with you? I work with a lot of people who are in coaching or they're consulting, they're trainers, facilitators, so they've all gone through certifications and extensive training. Why should I work with you? Well, I'm a 5 black belt blah de blah, and I've been certified in XYZ, and I studied at the feet of Scooby-Doo, and I'm listening to all this stuff, and it means nothing, like, woo, right over my head. So that's basically reciting your talent. And that's great, and it's a wonderful resume. But I want to know who you are, what you do, who you work with, and what are the results people get. Don't just talk to me about all your certifications, because that's really boring. That's like the alphabet soup after somebody's name. It's like,
right.
Snooze.
And lots of people have the exact same certifications.
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So this gets back to that question, why you? So it's not about the alphabet soup of certifications. So this is getting into this whole area where one has to be really super confident, like you said. I mean, it has to go into that emotional confidence of who you are. And it seems, like you said, that could be a struggle based on how you wake up in the morning. But do you have any tips or I don't know, some kind of exercise to help people keep on message?
Well, there are a couple of different things. So what you just said right now alludes to some of the inner work. And what's been interesting is that when I first started my coaching 100 million years ago with Comadre Coaching, the creative process, it was a very internal process. And, I'd coach people around things like gratitude and being observant in the world and appreciative. And that would shift how a person felt about themselves and their creativity, and suddenly they could bring that into their work. And then when I started doing Viva Visibility and everyone was asking for tactics, I kind of kept it up in the head. It's like, here's how you do it, problem, solution.
Right.
And with Talent Genius, I've taken it back down into the inside, because what I realize is that without that core strength, we're not going to be able to get things on the outside. So a couple of things I really recommend for people to, if you want to stay on message, don't start with the message. Start with you. It's so much better to invest a little bit of time, and I'm not talking months, I'm talking you could meditate on this for half an hour and say, okay, great, I'm over it, I'm ready for the next step. Just reflect on what's important to you. What are the core values in your life? What is it that you really stand for? So if you can reflect on your values, that's one, and clearly identify those and stand up for those. So you know what? I believe creativity is important, and I'm going to tell that to the world. And for me, that's true. I believe curiosity is important. I'm going to tell that to the world. I believe that being vulnerable is important, and we need to risk being vulnerable in order to grow, and I'm going to tell that to the world. It is so important for me to share that I'm willing to say it publicly. Other people might have a different message. They might say something else that's part of their values. So identify your values and speak them out loud. Don't just put them on a little cute vision board or whatever. Just speak them aloud. Talk to people about it. Write about it, and show it. Demonstrate it in all that you do. When you are living it, that's the first step to being on message. That's the real first step to strong positioning. Too many people default to somebody, they'll just pay somebody to say, find the words for me, and that's it. Just give me a tagline. Well, what happens? Like 6 months later, they go and have to rebrand because they say, it just doesn't fit me anymore. Do it right the first time. Another exercise that you can do is to um, just go through your own inventory of talent and genius. I've got a resource on my site that can walk you through it. Just take yourself through your own inventory of talent and genius. Look at your life path, look at your life history, and look at your genius, and start to identify and appreciate your unique intersections. Because when you do that, then you're going to start to see that you do stand out so much more than you think that you do. And after that, it takes a bold step. It's scary. This is where the vulnerability part comes in. You know, your knees are shaking and your ankles are wobbly and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out there and topple down. Everybody feels that way. Nobody wakes up in the morning feeling perfect. So we all get to stand up imperfectly, put ourselves out there in the best way that we can. And you might nail it the first time, you might not, but don't quit. Just keep trying, because if you keep speaking from your truth, that's what's going to shine. That's the real magnetic positioning and messaging. It's not necessarily having the perfect set of words. The words are great. I help people with the words all the time. But if you don't have that power underneath it, that confidence, the words are just a window dressing. And I want more for you than that.
That is just...
Amen.
Amen is right. It's like, woo! Yeah. I mean, that was beautiful. I'm glad it's on video.
I'll put a crown on my head for that one.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Woo! Yes. Just as a side note here, this is one of Nancy's first guest appearances on a Hangout, so she's playing with the tools now.
It is the first, yes.
First.
I
Okay.
promised to behave myself from here on, but I felt that a crown was necessary for that one moment.
Yes, it was necessary. And, again, it resonates with me so strongly because it was on that trip, on that track in Peru, where I realized that every day I was waking up in total joy. And I wanted, and it was hard. Let me tell you, it was hard. It was the most physically challenging thing I'd ever done. But every morning I couldn't wait to get back out there because it felt so good. And I came home and said, I want to keep feeling like this. And so that's kind of like my touchstone is like, remember that? Oh yeah, that's the way I want to feel.
That is cool. That is cool. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, anyway, one of the things that you said is that copycat marketing is dead. And so I do want to address this and what you mean by that, first of all, and then bring in a comment by someone who RSVP'd, and if we can just get a little bit around that. So why do you say that? And what is that?
So copycat marketing is, I start, as you can tell, I'm starting with you as a person. So there are different, you want to, when we're talking about copycat marketing, where do you want to start? You want to start with branding? You want to talk about, the structure of marketing, how you do a funnel, all of these different things. Let's start with you. Okay, let's start with you. And there are so many people who do not want to, they don't know how, or they don't know that they can tap into their own intersection of talent and genius. They can't just stand out there and be themselves. They have to stand out there and be someone else. They have to, their back glamour, whatever they're being a persona, and they're just not being themselves. That's where I start when I'm talking about copycat marketing. I'm talking about just be you. Don't be a knockoff of some mentor who taught you. Don't be a knockoff of this person over there because they're a 7-figure business owner and you want to be, and so you figure in order to be 7 figures, I need to be like that person. I need to get a nose job, a boob job, dye my hair blonde, get a mohawk, do CrossFit, whatever it is. If that's not you, don't worry about it. But what I see is there are so many people who think that if they copy the exterior of a successful person, that they will somehow generate whatever it is that's fueling that person on the interior. So when I'm talking copycat marketing, I want to start first of all from that physical, literal, exterior copying where you're afraid to be yourself. And I'm saying be yourself and don't be afraid to be yourself.
Right.
And I do see Ed's comment.
Yeah, Ed wrapped this comment, and this is why I wanted to, I love that phrase. I'm not sure copycat marketing is dead. Okay, maybe a tad warped, but not dead. Why reinvent the wheel? I'd rather build on others' successes than try and invent something from the ground up. And I think this is an important point to bring up because it's not about necessarily modeling the tactics, it's modeling what you bring to the tactics. At least that's how I'm interpreting it.
Right. But then I think also we are in a day and age where, with the advent of smartphones, smartphones and screen time has increased a bazillion % in the last 10 years. And you can quote me on those numbers, bazillion.
Okay.
I did my research. And what's interesting is that the understands marketing now, understands the patterns of persuasion, understands, oh, I see what you're doing here, oh, I see what you're doing there, I know what you're going to do next. The wizard's curtain has been pulled back. And so the other part of copycat marketing is dead is that we are now charged with innovation. How do we still connect? How do we still gain loyal customers and followers? How do we continue to build our businesses and make more money and increase revenue and increase visibility? Knowing that everyone is sort of getting, everyone is getting tired of the same old, same old. So this
Right.
is a time to be a guinea pig. This is a time to be a thought leader and a risk taker and try something. Like, Denise, this is a no opt-in hangout.
Right.
A couple of years ago, you would have gotten your wrist slapped hard for this.
Yes, those marketing gurus would not have been happy about that. And they've found ways to make them opt-in. I just choose not to make this show opt-in.
But it's working for you. And so you're showing people by being the risk taker that if that opt-in doesn't feel right for you or you want to try something different, you're doing it. So this show right now is an example of non-copycat marketing, of an original form of marketing, of a trust-building form of marketing, which I think is the way to go.
Yeah. And, this is where, one of my core values comes in, which is experimentation. And, with that comes adventure, that, you've got to try it, because if you don't know, you don't know, right? If you don't go, you don't know. If you don't try, you don't buy, whatever. No, but it's about doing experiments. If it doesn't work, that's okay.
Yeah.
And you move on and try the next thing. It doesn't mean that you should eliminate, some tried and true things too in your marketing. And I was on a hangout last week about that, and really got on my soapbox about some things that people really shouldn't, let go in their marketing. But it is a fine line, because it can be scary, because the launch format works or whatever. But does it really anymore? That's the question, because like you said, people are very savvy now.
Yeah. And then also, tweaks and course corrections doesn't mean throw everything out and start it from scratch. Some people love to do that and they find it really exhilarating. I have no problem with just, moving things, change it by 10 degrees every single time. Subtle shifts and subtle changes, so that way you're not risking the farm. It just depends on each individual and their tolerance for risk and you're an adventurer. So of course you're going to want to hey, let's give it a try, and that exhilarates you. Somebody else, they'll have a nervous breakdown doing what you're doing, but we need people like you. The person who would have a nervous breakdown doing this might be innovating in another way, and we can learn from that person. So if we all just take a little bit of risk, see what happens, share our findings, I think that's a really great way to grow.
Right. And instead of how would guru A or B do it, say, how would I really like to do it? What would be the thing that really excites me, without looking at, oh, this is the way it's always been done.
Exactly.
So we're at the bottom of the hour right now, the bottom of the half hour, and I want to be mindful of your time. So why don't you give us a little idea what you've got coming down the road? What are you working on these days?
Well, I've been working with people just very intensively, helping them reach the core of their talent and genius, and been doing some intensive mentoring. It's very exciting. I've been watching people who were devaluing their talent and genius and undercharging and underappreciating themselves completely break out and just explode with their revenues, establish names for themselves, and not necessarily become Oprah famous overnight. There are people who have maintained a small level of visibility but an extremely high level of profitability, and just finding that right combination for people. So that has been something very exciting. I can, I don't know if I can give my website or my website's on
please.
under my name. I mean, if people want to go to my website, talentandgenius.com, you can get a free training that's called Get Paid to Be You, and that will help you go through the intersection of talent and genius. And if you want to connect directly with me, you can actually go to a link that's called talkwithnancy.com. And that's if you want to find out more and you want to come straight over and have a conversation and see about how this works for you. So talentandgenius.com is my main website. Talk with Nancy, that's a nice little place where you can just give me some more information about yourself. And then if it looks like we'd make a good, we'd be a good match, I will get in touch with you and we'll set up time to chat.
Excellent. Excellent. So my final question, what was your most memorable adventure? It can be life, business, travel, whatever. I just love to know what your adventure is that has stayed with you.
I have so many adventures, and my favorite adventures are always the ones that come off spontaneous. Like you're driving down the highway, and the highway's closed, and you take a detour, and the detour just took you on the most magical, mystical tour of your life. I am drinking out of my Hawaii mug that I got last year on a trip to Hawaii, and my daughter went with me to a business retreat on the Big Island a year ago. I took her out of school for a week, put her on independent study, okayed it with the principal and the teacher, everything was cool, and she went with me to Hawaii, and while I was in meetings, she had some things that she got to do, and then we had a day together with some other families, and we went on this great adventure in this, I don't even know what you call them, if it's like a Range Rover or whatever it is, but it was like this military type vehicle where you're like open and it's super, it goes on tough terrain, and we're like bouncing around on this thing and on this crazy road, and then we took this hike down through this jungle, and we landed at this place where there was this beautiful, beautiful waterfall with a pool, a natural pool, and we swam in this pool, and it was surrounded by volcanic rocks. And there was this big rock next to this pool that was like a table-shaped rock. And the person who was guiding us in this area had told us that this particular rock wasn't even from that area. It was brought in. And it turned out that this site was a site where women used to go to give birth. And wow. It was amazing. And as we were swimming in this little pool surrounded by these volcanic rocks, and it's like you could just hear the voices of the people who'd been there, generations and generations ago, thousands of years ago. It was beautiful, and to share it with my daughter was really fun. The fact that she got a week out of school was really awesome. So I have this mug that I got that says Hawaii, and I drink my tea out of it every day because it reminds me of that trip, and it really influenced my daughter as well. Now she just loves all things Hawaii. And there were so many, just that to me was such a beautiful surprise and such a gorgeous, gorgeous place. So of my many adventures, that's one that I'll share. Okay. You're going to have to invite me back on your show because I have a whole bunch more.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. That sounds like a beautiful adventure, actually. I was imagining it, visualizing it the whole time as you were talking about it. So it's very descriptive. Thank you. So we are at the end of the show, and I want to remind you that if you would like to get advance notice of who's coming up on Adventures in Visibility, you can go to adventuresinvisibility.com to sign up for the advance notice list. And Nancy, I want to thank you for being with us here today. It was just beautiful, that piece in there. I mean, everything was, but also that piece. I'm gonna like cut it out or something and share that, because that was just amazing. And I really appreciate you spending your time with me today. So thank you.
Oh, Denise, thank you so much. Thank you for jumping me into Google Hangouts, because I was resistant for a long time, but now I have all these fun little, things that I learned how to do, and I appreciate you teaching me.
Well, you're not a Google virgin anymore, so there you go.
Scandal.
Uh-oh. Okay, thank you everyone for being with us today, and I wish you an adventurous day.